Sorry about that, but we still have the scoreboard. Spawning in the bottom right position as the red Terran player. As from Team Liquid, the EGTL tag always throws me off. It is TaeJa. And his opponent in the top left as the blue Protoss player is from Team Incredible Miracle. It is Squirtle. Yeah, we're gonna switch to the overlay next game. It's sometimes run into these issues where I got my overlay about a half hour ago to use for this, and I set it up to use it, and I had it configured in my options. But then I switched server, and sometimes it saves the settings so that you use an overlay. Like you have different settings for each region apparently, so that's why it's going to be different this one game. So hopefully it's all good. Very fast probe scout going out for Squirtle. He's not taking the gateway at an unusually early time, but still pretty fast. And what TaeJa is doing in this game, pretty fast gas, so it's going to be a very fast factory build. When you take the refinery before the barracks, it allows you to build that factory as soon as the barracks completes. So TaeJa can use this to go for a build like a very fast Widow Mine drop. You can go for a Hellion play. We've seen a wide variety of builds. I believe QXC in the IEM New York qualifier for the American side. I guess earlier today or yesterday for you Europeans that might be tuning in, went for a fast mine drop build. We saw the STC in earlier stages of the Korean qualifier try to open up with a very macro heavy style from this, as well as some Hellion play. So there's lots of cool things you can do, and I find that the gas first play in Terran versus Protoss is very flexible and leaves a lot of aggressive options open to a Terran player that can quite honestly instantly win a Terran player the game if the Protoss is not prepared. Squirtle sees this. He has to recognize that there's an imminent threat of being hit by something like those very fast Widow Mine drops. He can be hit by the very fast Hellions. There's just so many things that TaeJa can do, and for the moment, he's still just chronoing out his probes. He's not doing anything ridiculous. In fact, he looks like he even cancels his Zealot. He wants to take that one gateway expand. He's not super worried about having his Nexus blocked. He will, however, have to be careful. As the Nexus starts, the factory will complete. We should see that starport for TaeJa. He's kept his SCVs mining full saturation on gas the whole time as well. Important to note. So there's the starport beginning, and there's that Widow Mine. So it's going to be a very fast Widow Mine drop. The mothership core will be out in just a second's time. So that can start to bank up energy for photon overcharge, but he still needs to be very careful. In fact, you even see this pylon positioning being used by Squirtle to kind of block off anything that might try to run behind the mineral line. It's a small touch, but it's actually pretty important. So I do like that. Actually really like that. This map overall is somewhat refreshing to bring into this matchup because the layout is quite different. Great drop location for Terran versus Protoss on this potential third base, and then the other third base is open from two angles, means that once you try to take that third base, you find yourself very susceptible to attacks. Even proxy pylons can make attacking these areas good. You see these little bridges in the bottom center and the top center position, allowing TaeJa to kind of dance around the towers to avoid having his scout seen. Now the real question is, what does he do with this scout? Stalker comes in, he spots the Nexus, but the mothership core will help in DPSing that down. Behind this, Squirtle does have the robotics facility. He's adding on gateways. This is very standard Protoss play. The robotics facility means he can get an observer out to deal with this mine drop that's now heading across the field. We have one Hellion on the field. A second one will complete. This is a very standard timing. 6 Marines, 1 mine drop. You try to drop on the ramp or in the main base, and at the same time, you run the 2 Hellions into the natural to either kill probes that are already here or to kill any probes that try to transfer down to the main base. But look at Squirtle's setup. He's kept all of the probes in the main base, even rallying the ones from the natural into the main. This way, he can keep everything safe within the range of that photon overcharge. The observer will also be out just in the nick of time. It's about halfway done. Here comes the medevac. What's he going to do? There you go. He's dropping the mine on the ramp. He's trying to keep control of the space outside the range of the photon overcharge, but this the main base is so small, it's quite difficult to deal with that. And you see the Hellions starting to put a little bit of pain on the natural expansion as he's going through any scans. He's just going to kill off that observer that Squirtle made. A very nice touch by TaeJa, meaning this Widow Mine cannot be attacked just yet. The most he can do is clean up some of the shields on this Nexus and photon overcharge. So that does get activated. The observer will finish, and I think TaeJa's aggression is mostly over, but look at this. 3 Stalkers warping outside TaeJa's natural. He has a bunker. He has Marines, but the Marines are not in that bunker, and Squirtle's going to run right up, shutting down these SCVs. He's going to try to head straight into the main. TaeJa immediately pouring a ton of SCVs. He realizes he must defend this attack. He's still trying to do a little bit of cute micro at his opponent's base, but that wasn't overcharge. There's nothing these Marines Marines can do. It's simply not enough. The Observer taking out the Widowmine. These Stalkers are continuing to press forward. He gets that one Marine into the bunker, but one Marine is not enough to get all of this. He needs to get the rest of them in there. He's trying to. The bunker is so low. With the repair, TaeJa should be able to hold on here, but he's taking a decent bit of damage. The overcharge will help clean up the remainder of these forces. Somehow, TaeJa didn't lose everything super fast, but he's lost a good couple of SCVs. Now we have Zealots being warped in. This lone bunker with barely any Marines is going to be so... He's going to have so much trouble breaking this. And there we go. Uses the burst, the Widowmine, but I do wonder if he's just going to splash on his own SCVs. Thankfully, he will not. And Squirtle's just focusing down TaeJa's SCVs at this point. A fantastic position for the IEM Protoss player, killing off, what, 12 SCVs so far. Very, very nice play. He's going to keep warping in Zealots. We should see an observer come down here relatively soon, but right now it looks like all he wants to do is kill SCVs. It's not a terrible plan. TaeJa does have a third command center, so he can replenish them fairly quickly, but now he's going to walk off to the other side here. The two Widowmines being built does make things a lot more difficult, though, as the Stalkers get one-shot by those, so he cannot press in. I really like how patient Squirtle's being, though. He's kept the Observer at home. He's kept the Mothership Core and a couple of Stalkers. He's very cautious about follow-up attacks. Now he's just going to come up here and try to kill everything else that isn't in this bunker. He's actually giving up quite a bit to make this happen. One of these medevacs still alive. He really just wants to kill all of the SCVs. He's invested a lot of resources into this, but it's totally worth it. 39 probes to 18 SCVs, getting a forge now, and having that robo gives him the flexibility of being able to defend and attack. If he wants to chron out an Immortal and go for the all-in to finish the game, he can do that. TaeJa even being forced into a position where he needs to not only keep producing these Widowmines, which delay his tech and his upgrades, but getting the bunker and having to keep SCVs ready to go repair. He's barely saturated in his main base. The natural expansion is really, he's only mining with mules there. So these Stalkers are here with the Observer, but I don't think Squirtle can really break this now, especially with a third bunker being added. What's important, though, is that Squirtle now has the freedom to basically do whatever he wants. We should see a robotics base come up. There it is. The Twilight Council is on the way as well for Squirtle, which means he can move into that +2 if he really wants. I guess his +1 is pretty damn far away, so that's not immediate priority, but it will allow him to get Charge. He can get Blink. He can just go Blink Stalker, Colossus. He's really just in a fantastic position. It's hard to stress how strongly favored Squirtle is right now in this game. I don't mean to harp on that too much, but TaeJa needs to make some plays, and he tries to leave his base and immediately gets spotted by a pylon. He's just going to chill. He's just chilling with the pylon, you know? It's like going to his favorite bar. Now the Marines come out to destroy that. TaeJa using the Mercenary Marines to remind Squirtle that he is a monster, but cannot even kill a pylon outside of his own base. This pylon is within like vision range of his main, and he cannot kill it, is how tough of a spot TaeJa is in now. He's trying to secure the rest of his gas. I assume he'll try to get upgrades, but that +1 armor is going to go unhindered. And most importantly, Squirtle can just take his third with no repercussions whatsoever. He can just take the third base. There's nothing that TaeJa can do about it. He doesn't even have stim started. He's just starting stim pack now. So trying to move on to the field without stim is so difficult as a Terran versus a Protoss, because you can get force fielded very easily without that mobility, which means that Colossi becomes so much more effective. And look at this, the Colossus is already on the way. Halfway done, excuse me, for Squirtle. This puts him in a fantastic spot. Just a couple of force fields, and he could tear through this army with no problem at all. TaeJa's early aggression really has not panned out that well. He's had to invest a lot of resources into these defenses that, in all honesty, he's probably going to end up needing again later on when the counterattack comes. He's a bit supply blocked as well here, having some difficulty getting his units out. He is, however, moving out this third base. He's trying to stay even on the economy. He's recovered the SCVs lost. 19 were lost earlier on in this game, but he's back up to 50 with the 3 mules. The game's not completely over, but TaeJa does need a miracle. One mine is loaded up into a medevac, and you know, if he can drop this mine in the mineral line and kill off 7 or 8 probes, that could potentially start you know, a swing of upward motion carrying TaeJa back into the game. But like I said, it's going to be very difficult. Does spot this floating this pylon thanks to that floating factory, so TaeJa's able to deny some of the proxy potential. There's still 1 pylon north of the natural expansion, and Squirtle taking this third base, which is slightly more forward than this one, not only protects him from things like this early drop, but it also means that in the later game, it's going to be a bit easier to take this base since it is closer to the main. It's closer to everything else, not quite as extended. So the mine burrows to block it, uses the medevac to scout, triggers the photon overcharge, but can't really do too much with it. Now we'll have to see what TaeJa can make happen, as he's managed to even up the supply, the benefit of those mules transferring into a ton of mineral heavy units. And this Widowmine actually gets a couple kills. guess it must have just killed a Stalker or something along the lines. The total units that have been lost in this game, 9 Zealots and 5 Stalkers versus quite a bit for the Terran, to be perfectly honest. And this force is moving out. TaeJa has the south tower. The north tower does belong to Squirtle. And what to see, there is only a single Colossus on the field, no thermal lance, so it's a straight up Templar switch for Squirtle. He wants to go right into that Charge Lot Archon army composition, or at least mix in, or even just Charge Lot Storm. These 2 gateways not being turned into warp gates yet is mildly Jimmy rustling, but not a huge deal. Double medevac job heading towards the left side of the map. Will this be TaeJa's moment to make something happen in this game? I don't know. It's still going to be very hard as an observer watching over the west bridge. And with this warp prism now heading towards the south side, that's going to make pushing it even more difficult. And I'm kind of wondering where TaeJa's throwing these scans. If he picked off an observer or something. Actually could not see where that scan went for TaeJa, but this observer sees everything. Squirtle knows that the attack is coming in. He's going to warp in units and prepare to snipe off these medevacs, most likely, since he does have Blink. TaeJa realizes he doesn't have that many choices. He immediately moves backwards. Now scanning the army, sees the Templar. So TaeJa's actually been making some Vikings. Not the most useful units in the game versus Templar. Of course, there is one Colossus, but without range. It actually has the same range as the Marauder, but now he's actually going to get from both sides. He cannot retreat in these medevacs, so Stalker will just blink under and snipe them. Does manage to grab one of those medevacs. The rest of the Bioforce for TaeJa is moving in. He's on even supply. He needs a perfectly controlled fight to have any chance, but there's so many Templar here with Storm, 4 of them. Leash Hatching is from available. The big concave for TaeJa. He's going to try and run in one Storm. Does push the army back. The Zealots are charging forward. No EMPs, though, means this is still a very tough fight. That's all the Zealot flank coming in from behind on that left side pylon is going to be able to just shove TaeJa all the way back towards his natural expansion. Keep in mind the War Prism is in the main. Many a Zealot being brought in here, and Squirtle just pushing TaeJa further and further back into that natural base, continuing Visitor Assault. And like I said, he's still got the main base. He's just blocking the production. The Stalkers blink into the main. There's not much that TaeJa can do to hold this attack off now. It seems Squirtle will take aim. TaeJa taps out, and that is going to be an early one.